Yuna stood at the edge of the great hall and watched the crowd move like a slow river. Aliens of all shapes and sizes walked past her. Some had scales. Some had fur. Some had skin that changed color with every step. She had been on orbital station Keth for 3 months now, but she still felt small in places like this. The hall was built for gatherings. High ceilings made of glass showed the stars outside. The floor was smooth and white, and it reflected the lights from above like a frozen lake. Hundreds of beings moved through the space, talking in languages Yuna did not understand. Her translator, a small device behind her ear, tried its best to keep up. Yuna was a medic. She had trained on Earth for 6 years before the Galactic Council allowed humans to serve on stations like this one. It was a new thing. Humans were still seen as young and strange. Most species thought they were too emotional, too soft, too quick to act without thinking. She did not care what they thought. She was here to help people, no matter what they looked like. The gathering today was for trade talks. Leaders from 12 species had come to discuss shipping routes and resource sharing. Yuna was not part of the talks. She was only there in case someone got sick or hurt. It was boring work, but she did not complain. She liked watching the aliens. She liked learning about them. Her eyes moved across the room. She saw a group of Fenari standing near a window. They were tall and thin, with silver skin and 4 arms. They spoke in soft whistles that her translator turned into flat words. Near them, a pair of Grolic merchants argued about something. They were short and round, with thick green skin and small black eyes. Their voices were loud and rough. Yuna smiled a little. She liked the Grolic. They were honest in a way that other species were not. If they were angry, they showed it. If they were happy, they laughed like thunder. There was no hiding with them. She turned her head and looked toward the center of the hall. That was when she saw the cub. It was a Velthari child. The Velthari were a proud species. They looked like large cats that walked on 2 legs. Their fur was thick and dark, and their eyes glowed like soft gold. They were known for their strength and their silence. They did not speak much to other species. They kept to themselves. The cub was small. It could not have been more than 5 or 6 years old in human terms. It walked slowly near a pillar, staying away from the crowds. Its head was low. Its tail dragged on the floor, and its front paw was wrapped in a dirty bandage that was soaked with blood. Yuna felt her chest tighten. She could see the pain in the way the cub moved. Every step was careful. Every breath was slow. It was trying not to cry. She looked around. Other aliens walked past the cub without stopping. A Fenari glanced at it, and then looked away. A group of traders moved around it like it was just a rock in their path. No one said anything. No one offered help. Yuna frowned. She did not understand. The cub was clearly hurt. Why was no one helping? She stepped forward, but a hand touched her arm. She turned and saw Dowan, her human partner on the station. He was older than her, with tired eyes and gray hair at his temples. He had been working on stations like this for over 10 years. Don't, he said quietly. Yuna looked at him. Why not? That child is hurt. Dowan shook his head. The Velthari don't accept help from outsiders. It's part of their culture. They believe that suffering builds strength. If someone is hurt, they must heal on their own. It is their way. Yuna stared at him. That's a child. I know, Dowan said. His voice was soft but firm. But if you touch that cub without permission, you could start a conflict. The Velthari are here for the talks. They're already unhappy about humans being on the station. If you break their customs, it could make things worse for all of us. Yuna turned back to the cub. It had stopped walking. It was sitting now, near the base of the pillar, licking at the bloody bandage with its tongue. Its golden eyes were wet. It was trying to fix the wound by itself, but it could not reach it properly. Her heart hurt just watching. I can't just stand here, she whispered. Dowan sighed. I know how you feel. But sometimes we have to follow the rules, even when they don't make sense to us. That's how we survive out here. Yuna did not answer. She watched the cub struggle. She watched its small body shake with pain. She watched its tail curl around itself for comfort, and she watched as more aliens walked past. Some of them looked at the cub. Some of them even stopped for a moment. But none of them helped. They just watched in silence, and then moved on. Yuna felt something hot rise in her chest. It was not anger, exactly. It was something deeper. It was the feeling she had when she first decided to become a medic. The feeling that told her no living thing should suffer alone. She thought about what Dowan said. She thought about the rules. She thought about the Velthari and their customs. She thought about the talks and the politics and the careful balance of power on the station. And then she thought about the cub. It was just a child. It did not care about politics. It did not care about customs. It only knew that its paw hurt, and no one was helping. Yuna took a deep breath. She looked at Dowan one more time. He saw the look in her eyes, and his face changed. He knew that look. He had seen it before, in other humans who had come to the stars with their soft hearts and their stubborn ways. Yuna, he said, please, think about this. I have, she said, and then she started walking toward the cub. The crowd around her seemed to slow down. The noise of the hall became distant, like a sound heard through water. All she could see was the small figure near the pillar. All she could hear was her own heartbeat. She did not know what would happen next. She did not know if she was making a mistake. But she knew one thing for certain. She could not walk away. Not from this. Not from a child in pain. That was not who she was. That was not what humans did. And so she kept walking, one step at a time, toward the cub that no one else would help. Yuna walked slowly. She kept her hands open and low, the way she had learned to do when approaching scared animals back on Earth. She did not want to frighten the cub. She did not want to make things worse. The cub saw her coming. Its golden eyes lifted from the bloody bandage and locked onto her face. Its ears went flat against its head. Its small body pressed harder against the pillar, like it was trying to disappear into the stone. Yuna stopped a few steps away. She lowered herself to one knee so that she was closer to the cub's level. She could see its face more clearly now. The fur around its eyes was wet. It had been crying, but trying to hide it. Hello, Yuna said softly. Her translator turned the word into a series of low sounds that the Velthari could understand. The cub did not answer. It just stared at her with wide, scared eyes. Yuna pointed to her own chest. My name is Yuna. I am a healer. She spoke slowly, using simple words. I want to help you. See, the cub's ears moved a little. It understood her, but it did not move. Behind her, Yuna could feel eyes on her back. She knew that people were watching. She knew that Dowan was probably shaking his head. She knew that the Velthari adults somewhere in the hall might already be aware of what she was doing. She did not care. Your paw, Yuna said gently. She pointed at the bloody bandage. It hurts, yes? The cub looked down at its paw, its small face twisted with pain. Slowly, very slowly, it nodded. Yuna felt her heart break a little more. I can help, she said. I have clean bandages. I have medicine. I can make the pain go away. The cub's eyes came back to her face. There was something in those golden eyes now. Something like hope, but also something like fear. No one helps, the cub said. Its voice was small and rough, like it had not spoken in a long time. It is not allowed. Yuna felt a wave of sadness wash over her. This child had learned, at such a young age, that suffering was something to face alone. That asking for help was weakness. That pain was just part of life. I am not from your world, Yuna said carefully. Where I come from, we help each other. Even strangers. Even when no one asks. The cub tilted its head. It did not seem to understand. Why? It asked. Yuna thought for a moment. How could she explain something so basic? How could she put into words what every human knew in their bones? Because it is the right thing to do, she said finally. Because no one should hurt, alone. The cub stared at her. Its ears slowly lifted from its head. Its tail uncurled a little from around its body. "You are strange," the cub said. Yuna smiled. "Yes, I am." She reached into the bag at her side and pulled out a small kit. Inside were bandages, a bottle of cleaning liquid, and a tube of medicine. She had carried this kit every day since she arrived on the station. She never knew when she might need it. "Can I see your paw?" Yuna asked. She held out her hand, palm up. She did not reach for the cub. She waited. For a long moment, nothing happened. The cub just looked at her hand like it was something dangerous. Like it might bite. Then, slowly, the cub moved. It stretched out its hurt paw and placed it gently in Yuna's palm. Yuna let out a breath she did not know she was holding. "Good," she whispered. "That was very brave." She looked at the bandage. It was old and dirty. Someone had wrapped it days ago. Maybe longer. The blood had soaked through and dried in hard, dark spots. The edges were coming loose, and she could see raw, red skin beneath. "This will hurt a little," Yuna said. "But only for a moment. I promise." The cub nodded. Its small body was shaking, but it did not pull away. Yuna worked carefully. She used the cleaning liquid to soften the dried blood. She peeled away the old bandage, piece by piece, as gently as she could. The cub made small sounds of pain, but it stayed still. Beneath the bandage, the wound was worse than she had thought. It was deep, and the edges were red and swollen. Someone had tried to close it with rough stitches, but they had not done a good job. The skin was pulling apart in places. "Who did this to you?" Yuna asked quietly. The cub looked away. "I fell. During training, the healers fixed it, but it did not stay fixed." Yuna understood. The Velthari healers had done what their culture demanded. They had treated the wound once, and then left the cub to heal on its own. If the wound got worse, that was the cub's problem. That was how they built strength. But all Yuna saw was a child in pain. A child who needed help that no one would give. "What is your name?" Yuna asked as she cleaned the wound. "Taro," the cub said. "That is a nice name," Yuna said. She smiled at him. "You are being very brave, Taro." The cub's ears twitched. A tiny bit of the fear left its eyes. Yuna finished cleaning the wound. She applied the medicine, a cool gel that would stop infection and help the skin heal. Taro flinched at the cold, but he did not cry out. "Almost done," Yuna said. She took out a fresh bandage. It was white and soft, nothing like the rough cloth that had been on his paw before. She wrapped it around the wound with practiced hands, making sure it was tight enough to stay but not so tight that it would hurt. When she was finished, she sat back and looked at her work. The bandage was clean and neat. It would protect the wound while it healed properly this time. "There," Yuna said. "How does that feel?" Taro looked at his paw. He turned it this way and that, studying the new bandage. Then he looked up at Yuna, and his golden eyes were different now. The fear was almost gone. In its place was something warmer. "It does not hurt as much," he said. He sounded surprised. Yuna nodded. "The medicine will help, but you must keep it clean, and if it starts to hurt again, you must tell someone." Taro's ears went back a little. There is no one to tell. Yuna felt that familiar tightness in her chest. She reached out and gently touched the fur on top of Taro's head. The cub froze at first, not used to being touched, but then, slowly, he leaned into her hand. "You can tell me," Yuna said. "If you ever need help, you can find me. I work in the medical bay on level 7. Do you understand?" Taro looked at her with those big golden eyes. For a moment, he looked like he might cry again. But this time, it was not from pain. "Why are you so kind?" he asked. Yuna smiled sadly. "Because someone should be." Creation. She heard footsteps behind her. Heavy footsteps. She turned her head and saw a tall figure approaching. It was a Velthari adult, with dark fur and eyes that burned like fire. Yuna stood up slowly. She kept her body between the adult and Taro. She did not know what was coming next, but she was ready to face it, whatever the cost. The Velthari adult stopped a few steps away from Yuna. He was tall, at least a head taller than her. His fur was darker than Taro's, almost black, and his eyes were sharp like broken glass. He wore a long robe that marked him as someone important. A warrior, maybe. Or a leader. "What are you doing with this cub?" His voice was deep and cold. Yuna stood straight. She did not let fear show on her face, even though her heart was beating fast. "His bandage was falling off," she said calmly. "The wound was infected. I cleaned it and wrapped it again." The Velthari's eyes moved from Yuna to Taro. The cub had pressed himself against the pillar again, his ears flat, his body small. "You touched him," the Velthari said. It was not a question, it was a statement. And in his voice, Yuna could hear the weight of what that meant. "Yes," she said, "I did." The hall around them had gone quiet. Yuna could feel the eyes of dozens of aliens watching. The Fenari had stopped their conversation. The Grolic merchants had turned to look. Even the other Velthari in the room had noticed what was happening. No one moved. No one spoke. They just watched. The tall Velthari took another step closer. His shadow fell over Yuna like a dark cloud. "Do you know what you have done, human?" he asked. "Do you understand our ways?" Yuna nodded slowly. "I have been told. Your people believe that suffering makes you strong. That to help someone is to take away their chance to grow. That pain is a teacher." The Velthari's eyes narrowed. "Then you know you have broken our laws." "I have broken your customs," Yuna said. "But I have not broken any laws of this station, and I have not hurt anyone. I have only helped a child who was in pain." A low sound came from the Velthari's throat. It might have been a growl. "You speak as if helping is always good. But you do not understand. By helping this cub, you have shown him weakness. You have taught him to depend on others. You have made him less than he was." Yuna felt anger rise in her chest. She pushed it down. Getting angry would not help anyone. "I have shown him kindness," she said. "I have taught him that he does not have to suffer alone. I have given him hope." "Hope is weakness," the Velthari said. "No," Yuna said firmly. "Hope is strength. It is what keeps us going when everything is hard. It is what makes us try again when we fail. Without hope, there is nothing." The Velthari stared at her. His eyes burned, but he did not speak. Around them, the crowd had grown larger. More aliens had come to see what was happening. Yuna could hear whispers, being translated by her device. She caught pieces of what they were saying. The human touched the cub. She broke their customs. Foolish creature. Does she not know what the Velthari will do? Yuna ignored them all. She kept her eyes on the tall Velthari in front of her. "I do not expect you to understand," she said. "Our peoples are different. We see the world in different ways. But where I come from, a child in pain is a child in pain. It does not matter what species they are. It does not matter what customs say. When someone is hurting, and you can help, you help. Even if it costs you everything?" the Velthari asked. Yuna thought about the question. She thought about her job on the station. She thought about the talks that were happening. She thought about the careful peace between humans and the other species. "Yes," she said. Even then, the Velthari was silent for a long moment. His eyes moved from Yuna to Taro again. The cub was watching them both with wide eyes. His small paw, now wrapped in clean white bandage, was pressed against his chest. "You are either very brave or very stupid," the Velthari said finally. "Maybe both," Yuna admitted. Something flickered in the Velthari's eyes. It was too quick for Yuna to read. It might have been anger. It might have been something else. He turned his head and looked at the crowd that had gathered. Dozens of faces stared back at him. Aliens of every kind, all waiting to see what would happen next. "You all saw what this human did," he said. His voice loud enough for everyone to hear. "She touched one of our cubs without permission. She broke our customs. She showed no respect for our ways. The crowd murmured. Some nodded. Some shook their heads. The Velthari turned back to Yuna. By our laws, I could demand punishment. I could call for you to be removed from this station. I could make your life very difficult, human. Yuna did not flinch. You could, but I will not, the Velthari said. The crowd went completely silent. Even the whispers stopped. Yuna blinked. What? The Velthari's face was hard to read. His expression was like stone. But his voice, when he spoke again, was different. Softer. Somehow, I saw what you did, he said. I watched you walk across this hall, past everyone else who looked away. I watched you kneel beside this cub and speak to him like he mattered. I watched you treat his wound with hands that were gentle and careful. He paused. His eyes moved to Taro. That cub is my son. Yuna felt the world shift beneath her feet. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. I have watched him suffer for 3 days, the Velthari continued. His voice was heavy now, like it carried a great weight. Our healers said he must learn to endure. Our customs demanded that no one help him, and so I stood by and watched my own child struggle with pain I could have eased. His hands, large and clawed, curled into fists at his sides. I told myself it was the right thing. I told myself he would be stronger for it. I told myself that our ways had wisdom that outsiders could not understand. He looked at Yuna, and for the first time, she saw something behind the fire in his eyes. Something that looked almost like pain. But when I saw you walk toward him, I felt something I have not felt in a long time. I felt shame. The word hung in the air like smoke. You are a stranger, the Velthari said. You have no bond with this cub. You have no duty to him. And yet you helped him when his own people would not. When his own father would not. He took a deep breath. His massive chest rose and fell. I do not know if what you did was right or wrong. I do not know if it will make my son weak or strong. But I know this much. It took courage. And that is something my people respect. He reached out one large hand and placed it on Yuna's shoulder. The weight of it was heavy, but the touch was gentle. Thank you, he said quietly, for doing what I could not. Yuna looked up at him. She saw a father who had been trapped by his own culture. A father who loved his son but did not know how to show it. A father who had watched in silence because that was what he had been taught to do. Your son is brave, she said. He was very still while I worked. He did not cry. The Velthari looked at Taro. The cub looked back at his father with uncertain eyes. Yes, the Velthari said softly. He is. The crowd around them began to move again. The whispers returned, but they were different now. There was confusion in them, and wonder. Yuna did not know what would happen next. She did not know if this moment would change anything, or if it would be forgotten by tomorrow. But she knew one thing. She had done the right thing. And that was enough. The crowd did not leave. If anything, it grew larger. Word had spread through the hall like fire through dry grass. A human had touched a Velthari cub. A father had thanked her instead of punishing her. The rules had been broken, and no one knew what would happen next. Yuna stood with her hand still on the small kid at her side. Taro's father had stepped back, but he had not left. He stood near his son. His face, unreadable. Taro himself had moved closer to his father's leg, but his golden eyes kept looking at Yuna. There was something in those eyes now. Trust, maybe. Or the beginning of it. Dowan pushed through the crowd and reached Yuna's side. His face was pale. What did you do? He whispered. Do you have any idea what could have happened? I helped a child, Yuna said simply. Dowan opened his mouth to say more, but he stopped. His eyes had moved to something behind Yuna. His face went even paler. Yuna turned. Walking through the crowd was an old Velthari. She was smaller than Taro's father, bent with age, her fur gray and thin in places. But there was power in the way she moved. The crowd parted before her like water before a stone. Every Velthari in the room lowered their heads as she passed. An elder, one of the highest leaders of the Velthari people. She walked slowly, leaning on a staff made of dark wood. Her eyes were clouded with age, but they still held a sharp light. When she reached the center of the circle, she stopped and looked at Yuna. For a long moment, she said nothing. She just studied Yuna with those ancient eyes, as if she was reading a book written in a language only she could understand. Then she spoke. Her voice was dry and cracked, like old leaves. "You are the human who touched the cub." It was not a question. Yuna nodded anyway. "Yes, Elder, I am." The old Velthari tilted her head. "Why?" Yuna had answered this question before. But something about the way the Elder asked it made her pause. There was no anger in the old voice. No judgment. Just a simple question. Asked with genuine curiosity. "Because he was hurt," Yuna said. "Because no one else was helping. Because I could not walk away from a child in pain." The Elder nodded slowly. "And you knew our customs?" "I was told about them, yes. Yet you helped anyway." "Yes." The Elder turned and looked at the crowd around them. Hundreds of eyes looked back at her. Velthari, Fenari, Grolik, and a dozen other species. All watching. All waiting. "I have lived a long time," the Elder said. Her voice carried through the hall, even though she did not raise it. "I have seen empires rise and fall. I have watched species come and go. I have learned many things about the universe and the beings who live in it." She paused and turned back to Yuna. "One thing I have learned is this. Rules are important. They give us structure. They keep us safe. They teach us who we are and where we belong." Yuna felt her heart sink. She knew what was coming. The Elder was going to tell her that she had broken the rules, that there must be consequences, but the Elder was not finished. "However," she continued, "rules are made by people, and people are not perfect. Sometimes, the rules we make are wrong. Sometimes, they hurt more than they help. Sometimes, it takes someone from the outside to show us what we cannot see ourselves." The hall was completely silent now. Even the whispers had stopped. The Elder looked at Taro. The cub pressed closer to his father's leg. "I watched this child for the past 3 days," the Elder said. "I watched him suffer. I watched him struggle. I watched him try to be strong because that is what we taught him to be. And I felt proud. I thought, this is what makes us Velthari. This is what makes us great." Her voice grew heavier. "But I also watched something else. I watched him lose hope. I watched the light in his eyes grow dim. I watched him accept that no one would help him, that he was alone in his pain." She shook her head slowly. "That is not strength. That is despair. And despair does not make us great. It makes us empty." The Elder turned to Yuna. Her clouded eyes seemed to clear for a moment, and Yuna saw something deep and old and wise looking back at her. "You did something today that no Velthari would do. You crossed a line that we drew generations ago. You broke our customs in front of everyone." Yuna held her breath. "And in doing so," the Elder said, "you reminded us of something we had forgotten." She stepped closer to Yuna. Her old hand reached out and took Yuna's hand in hers. The touch was warm and soft, like old paper. "Compassion is not weakness," the Elder said. "Care is not a flaw. To help someone in pain is not to make them less. It is to show them that they matter, that their suffering is seen, that they are not alone." The Elder squeezed Yuna's hand gently. "We Velthari have walked our path for thousands of years. We have built an empire on strength and endurance. But somewhere along the way, we forgot that strength can also come from kindness. We forgot that the strongest bond is the one that says, 'I see you, I care about you, I will help you.'" She released Yuna's hand and turned to face the crowd. "Today, this human taught us something. She taught us that courage is not always about facing pain alone. Sometimes, courage is about reaching out. Sometimes, courage is about being soft in a hard world." The Elder raised her staff and struck it against the floor. The sound echoed through the hall like thunder. "I declare this human kin touched." A gasp went through the crowd. Even Taro's father looked shocked. Yuna did not understand. "Kin touched?" The Elder smiled. It was a small smile, Barely there, but it changed her whole face. It is an old honor. One we have not given to an outsider in over 200 years. It means you are considered family to the Velthari. It means any cub who needs help may come to you without shame. It means you are one of us, in all the ways that matter. Yuna felt tears building in her eyes. She blinked them back. I do not know what to say, she whispered. Then say nothing, the elder replied. Words are not always needed. What you did today spoke louder than any words could. Quote. She turned and placed her old hand on Tero's head. The cub looked up at her with wide eyes. And you, little one. Remember this day. Remember this human. When you are old and strong and leading our people, remember that kindness found you when you needed it most, and pass that kindness on. Tero nodded slowly. His eyes moved to Yuna, and for the first time, he smiled. It was a small smile, shy and uncertain. But it was real. Yuna smiled back. The elder began to walk away, her staff tapping against the floor with each step. The crowd parted before her once again. But before she left, she stopped and looked back at Yuna one last time. Thank you, she said, for reminding an old woman that even the wisest can still learn. Then she was gone, swallowed by the crowd. Yuna stood in the center of the hall, surrounded by hundreds of aliens who were looking at her differently now. She was not just a human medic anymore. She was something more. She was kin-touched, and she had no idea what that would mean. The days after the gathering were strange for Yuna. She went back to her work in the medical bay, treating the small injuries and illnesses that came her way. But everything felt different now. The way aliens looked at her had changed. Where there had once been distance, there was now curiosity. Where there had once been doubt, there was now something like respect. Word of what happened in the gathering hall spread quickly. It moved through the station like wind through an open window. By the second day, almost everyone knew the story. The human medic who touched the Velthari cub, the elder who named her kin-touched, the father who thanked her instead of demanding punishment. Some thought it was strange. Some thought it was foolish. But many thought it was something else entirely. They thought it was beautiful. Dowan visited her in the medical bay on the third day. He looked tired, but there was a small smile on his face. You are famous now, he said. Do you know that? Yuna shook her head. I did not do anything special. I just helped a child. That is exactly what made it special, Dowan said. In a galaxy full of beings who follow rules and customs and traditions, you did the simple thing. The human thing. You saw someone hurting and you helped. No questions. No conditions. Just help. He sat down on a chair near her workstation. I have been on stations like this for 10 years, he continued. I have learned to be careful, to follow the rules, to not make waves. And I thought that was the right way. The safe way. He paused and looked at his hands. But watching you walk across that hall, knowing what might happen, knowing the risk you were taking, it made me realize something. Being safe is not always being good. Sometimes, doing the right thing means taking a chance. Sometimes, it means breaking the rules that everyone else follows. Yuna did not know what to say. She had never thought of herself as brave. She had just done what felt right. I wanted to stop you, Dowan admitted. I wanted to pull you back and tell you to forget about the cub. But I did not. And I am glad I did not. He stood up and put a hand on her shoulder. You reminded me why I became a medic in the first place. To help people. Not just the easy ones. Not just the ones who fit the rules. All of them. He gave her shoulder a gentle squeeze and then left. Yuna watched him go. She felt something warm in her chest. Pride, maybe. Or hope. Later that same day, she had a visitor she did not expect. Tero came to the medical bay. He walked in slowly, his wrapped paw held carefully against his chest. His father was with him. The tall Velthari with the dark fur and the burning eyes. But those eyes were softer now. Warmer. Hello, Yuna, Tero said. His voice was still small, but there was strength in it that had not been there before. Yuna smiled and knelt down so she was at his level. "Hello, Taro. How is your paw?" The cub held it out for her to see. The bandage was still clean, still white. "It is better," he said. "The pain is almost gone." Yuna checked the bandage carefully. The wound beneath was healing well. The medicine had done its work. "Good," she said. "Very good. You took care of it just like I asked." Taro's ears lifted with pride. "I did." His father stepped forward. His face was still hard to read, but his voice was gentle. "We came to thank you again," he said. "And to tell you something." Yuna stood up. "What is it?" The father looked at his son, then back at Yuna. "When we return to our homeworld, I will tell our people what happened here. I will tell them about the human who helped my son when no one else would. I will tell them about compassion and kindness and the strength that comes from caring." He paused. "Our ways are old. They will not change quickly. But perhaps, in time, they can change a little. Perhaps we can learn to be strong and kind. Perhaps we can teach our cubs that asking for help is not weakness." Yuna felt tears in her eyes again. This time, she did not try to stop them. "That is all I could ever ask for," she said. Taro reached out and took her hand with his good paw. His fur was soft and warm against her skin. "Will I see you again?" he asked. Yuna squeezed his paw gently. "I hope so, Taro. I really hope so." The father and son left, but the warmth of that moment stayed with Yuna for a long time. In the weeks that followed, things continued to change. The trade talks ended successfully. The Velthari signed agreements with species they had never worked with before. And when they left the station, the elder made a point of walking past Yuna's medical bay and nodding to her through the window. But the biggest change was not in politics or trade. It was in the way people thought about humans. For years, humans had been seen as emotional and soft. They were considered young and foolish, too quick to feel and too slow to think. Other species tolerated them but did not take them seriously. Now, that was starting to change. Aliens began to visit Yuna's medical bay. Not because they were sick or hurt, but because they wanted to talk. They wanted to understand. They asked her questions about Earth, about human customs, about why humans helped strangers and cried at sad stories and formed bonds with beings they had just met. Yuna answered as best she could. She told them about empathy, about the way humans could feel the pain of others as if it were their own. She told them about family, not just the family you were born into, but the family you chose. She told them about hope, the stubborn belief that things could get better, even when everything seemed dark. Some aliens understood, some did not, but all of them listened, and slowly, quietly, something began to shift in the galaxy. The story of the human medic and the Velthari cub spread beyond the station. It traveled from world to world, carried by traders and travelers and diplomats. It became a legend, a tale told to children of all species. They called it the story of the kind hand. It was not about politics or power. It was not about war or conquest. It was about something simpler and more important. It was about compassion. Yuna never thought of herself as special. She was just a medic from Earth who had done what any human would do. She had seen a child in pain, and she had helped. But in doing so, she had shown the galaxy something it had forgotten, that the greatest strength is not in muscles or weapons or cold, hard logic. The greatest strength is in the heart that reaches out, the hand that offers help, the voice that says, "You are not alone." And that was a very human thing indeed.